Hi, this is Dr. Perry Carpenter. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to join me on this week's video. On this week's video, we're continuing with our brand new series. Today is session 1 of our brand new series entitled Recurring Themes in the QME Evaluation. And the purpose of this program is to reveal to you what you may already know instinctively, but not totally logically. And you may not have elaborated on it to yourself just yet, but you're going to see as you continue your career as a qualified medical evaluator that there are recurring themes that are occurring over and over and over in your QME practice. Now, this may not be evident to you if you're a newer QME and have not seen more than 50 or perhaps 100 QME evaluations. It takes a little time for these patterns to begin to manifest and develop themselves to you. But over time, with a certain number of evaluations under your belt, you're going to see recurring themes in the examinees that present to you. Now, the situations, scenarios, and circumstances that examinees bring to us in the qualified medical evaluation are not infinite. It's not an infinite number. In fact, the number is quite finite. In fact, it's quite a limited number. There's about 10 to 12 recurring themes that will make up the bulk of over 80% of the cases that you'll ever see in your entire career. And we're going to share with you these 10 to 12 recurring themes, even though they may be right under your nose with the very examinee whose case you're working on right now. Now, these recurring themes have to do with the difficult cases. They have to do with the denied cases. They have to do with the delayed cases, the suspicious cases, the controversial cases, the denied cases, the red flag cases. These recurring themes that I'm going to share with you are not generally involved in your standard, simple, bona fide, actual injury case. When you have an examinee who falls off the scaffold onto his back and the injury is witnessed by the owner of the company, the immediate supervisor, and 2 to 3 coworkers, and this examinee gets medical treatment immediately and has true and positive objective findings that can only be associated with the industrial injury, those are the simple cases we get. Wouldn't you like to have many more of those types of cases? Well, unfortunately, those types of cases are the minority of the cases that we get as qualified medical evaluators. The majority of the cases that we get are the red flag cases, the denied cases, the delayed cases, the suspicious cases, the controversial cases, the unusual cases, the difficult cases. These are the themes I want to share with you that apply to this class of cases that make up the most difficult decisions that are required of us to make. It's very simple to opine on the simple bona fide cases. It's the controversial cases where every I has to be dotted and every T has to be crossed for your opinions and conclusions to qualify as something that the parties can use. So being able to identify the recurring themes involved with the backbone of your case becomes critical. It's critical to help you understand what's going on with the case. The recurring themes that I'm going to share with you account for and amount to the big picture of your case. See, the big picture of your case scripts itself as a recurring theme. It's the details of the case, the minutia of the case, that bogs down and confuses the majority of QMEs. And in this program, we're going to focus on the big picture, the global view, the recurring theme of your case. Now, in today's session, this is session number 1 of this new program, we're going to be talking about job satisfaction. Job satisfaction. And I'm going to share with you everything that you ever need to know about job satisfaction and its relationship to your examinee's claim for industrial injury. So I have a fascinating program for you today, And from here on out, the purpose of this program is for you to focus on the principle of the program with your very next examinee. So with your very next examinee, as a result of your participating in today's class, I want you to focus on hints, suggestions, inferences, and intimacies for job dissatisfaction in your examinee. If you can spot truly objective job dissatisfaction with your next examinee, you'll have as much information as you need to confidently conclude the case with your substantial opinions and conclusions. And recurring themes can be like that. They can give us great information, great definitive information, great information upon which we can rely in providing opinions and conclusions that most closely resemble the truth, and nothing but the truth. So I have a fascinating program for you today. I'm going to go ahead and assemble some materials here, and I look forward to being back with you in just a few moments as we continue our ongoing series entitled Recurring Themes in the QME Evaluation. Back with you now, and I have some references here with me. We're quite busy in today's discussion, so I'm going to move along briskly here. There's 5 things that I want to discuss in this section of our program. Number 1, I want to go over a couple of references, and I have 3 or 4 studies that I want to share with you today that relate to job satisfaction. I want to talk to you today about the red flags of job dissatisfaction, the red flags of an industrial injury claim that are related to job dissatisfaction. I want to give you some examples of workplace factors that contribute to an employee's sense of job satisfaction. And then I want to contrast that with 2 case examples of actual QME examinees who present with components of job dissatisfaction in their history. And I'll share with you how the theme of job dissatisfaction wove itself throughout their case history, their physical exam, and how it wove itself into the QME's final opinions and conclusions. So you'll find that to be fascinating. And then I want to finish up today's discussion with a very brief discussion as to how to handle these examinees in whom you identify job dissatisfaction as a component of their history. Okay? So, as we said, these recurring themes, and specifically job dissatisfaction, is something that you're going to see recurring over and over and over in your examinees. They will say things in the history, they will make offhand comments, sidebars, side notes, hints, intimations, and suggestions that they're not totally happy with their workplace. Well, job dissatisfaction is one of the red flags for industrial injury. It seems that people who have job dissatisfaction file claims for workers' comp injury with twice the frequency as people who rate themselves as being satisfied with their job. So let me read for you a couple of red flags of industrial injury. And I'm not going to read to you every single red flag because there's many, as many as 100 published and written red flags. I'm going to share with you the red flags that are representative of job dissatisfaction. Okay? So for example, an examinee who stays out of work longer than the doctor prescribed could be an examinee who is dissatisfied with their job and does not want to come back to their job, even though the doctor says that they're ready to come back to their job. Another example of job dissatisfaction, that's a red flag, is an examinee who protests excessively about a modified position or returning to work. See, they don't want to return to work, so they protest excessively. How many times have you had examinees who stay out of work longer than the doctor prescribed, who protest excessively about a modified position or returning to work? That's like every single case, right? How about an examinee who is retiring, is on probation, is involved in a labor dispute, is disgruntled, or subject to a disciplinary action? Those are all just many examples of job dissatisfaction. For example, an examinee involved in a labor dispute. That's a person who's not too satisfied with their workplace. And one of the case examples that I want to share with you today involves a 26-year-old female who was involved with a labor dispute. So these are examples of job dissatisfaction. Someone who's disgruntled, someone who's subject to disciplinary action. So you might think of it, job dissatisfaction, as an examinee who has a beef, for lack of a better word. They have some sort of a beef, some sort of a conflict, some sort of a friction with the workplace. And specifically, when we refer to the workplace, we're most specifically referring to their immediate supervisor. And we'll talk about immediate supervisors in a minute. This is another reference for red flags for workers' compensation claims. It says the employee is disgruntled or facing imminent firing or layoff. So these are people who have a beef. They have an issue, most typically with their immediate supervisor. And the two case examples that I want to share with you today, both of them, I identified job dissatisfaction with their immediate supervisor. Okay? Now, for today's program, I want to share with you a couple of important references regarding job satisfaction. I have 3 studies here. One is from the California State University system. California State University system. All those campuses and all the auxiliary departments did some studies on reducing workers' compensation claims within the California State University system. Have another study entitled Occupational Management in the Workplace. Occupational Management in the Workplace. Things that you can do in the workplace. Occupational management in the workplace. And its impact on workers' compensation claims, incidents, on workers' compensation claims duration, and workers' compensation cost. Workers' compensation incidents, which is the rate at which claims are filed. Workers' compensation disability duration, which is the period of time of disability. And total cost of the claim, those 3 variables, rate of filing claims, disability duration of claims, and overall cost of claims, were found to be influenced by various factors. So number 1, the incidence of claims, the rate at which claims are filed, is related to depressed mood and lower job satisfaction. The rate at which workers' compensation claims are filed are variably impacted by what are known as behavioral factors. One of the behavioral factors is job dissatisfaction. Another behavioral factor is depression. So examinees who file workers' compensation claims in this particular study had higher scores on depression inventories. They also had lower scores on job satisfaction. So the rate at which workers' compensation claims are filed hinges on the mood state of the examinee, with more depressed examinees filing claims more often, and the satisfaction level with the job of the examinee, with those with lower job satisfaction scores more than twice as likely to file workers' compensation claims. So in your next three examinees, of those three examinees, only one of those is going to be a person who's satisfied with their job. Because these people rarely file workers' compensation claims. It's the majority that file workers' compensation claims that are dissatisfied with their job. Now, of those three groups, which of these three groups are going to be the most likely to have a bona fide, actual, diagnosable injury? It's, of course, those who have the higher job satisfaction. It's these other groups that make up the difficult claims, the controversial claims, the red flag claims, the delayed claims, and the denied claims. Those people under Labor Code 4060 that are seeing you for a QME evaluation are dissatisfied with their job. Specifically, they're dissatisfied with their immediate supervisor. Interesting. What about disability duration? Well, in this particular study, then, the incidence of filing claims was related to job satisfaction. The disability duration and the overall cost of claims in this study did not seem to be related to job satisfaction, but more were related to depressed mood again, and poor recovery expectation for disability duration. And then for overall cost, the overall costs were associated with higher depressed mood, okay, so that shows up in three analyses, and pain catastrophizing, with job satisfaction only related to the incidents with which claims were filed, not related to the disability duration, and not related to the overall cost of the claim. But within the body of this study, they cite other studies that state that disability duration and overall cost of the claim are related to job satisfaction. So it seems that job satisfaction factors into every component of the cost and the rate at which workers' compensation claims are filed. Imagine that in your next group of examinees. And then finally, and let me just read you a couple of highlights here. Says that when they implemented a plan in this particular study, they implemented a plan to raise the morale and the mood of the workers. They raised the satisfaction level of their job. They raised their pain catastrophizing, and they attacked the non-physical behavioral factors. They found that the injury incidence rate reduced by 58%. The ratio for disability duration reduced by 139%, and costs reduced from $114,000 to $56,000 per year. So rather than addressing safety factors in the workplace, they addressed behavioral factors such as mood and job satisfaction, and had significant improvements. Another study entitled Job Satisfaction as related to safety performance. Job satisfaction as related to safety performance. What type of examinees are more likely to act safely in the workplace? Well, it turns out it's those, of course, that are more satisfied with their jobs. And I'll just read you a couple of quotes from this study. It says, the factors most consistently associated with job-related injuries include mood among workers, role clarity, and job satisfaction and stress. In a similar study, Sherry, the author Sherry, identified 5 major factors related to potential causes of accidents, one of which was stress. Therefore, the consensus among safety professionals is that upwards of 90% of all accidents occurring in the workplace may be attributed to behavioral factors such as job satisfaction and stress. So let's think about this. 90% are due to behavioral factors. Our examinees are going to be presenting to us with behavior, okay? So we want to check out their behavior for signs of job dissatisfaction. So This tells us that we can implement all the safety procedures in the world. We can give classes on proper lifting techniques. We can have rules about no lifting over 25 pounds without a partner. We can have all this ergonomic equipment set up. In other words, we can attack the safety procedures. But according to this study, only 10% of the accident injury rate is based on safety factors. 90% is based on behavioral factors, such as job dissatisfaction. So it's those examinees that have job dissatisfaction, that's dissatisfaction, that are going to be getting injured, that are going to be reporting injury. If they have actual injury, they're more likely to have actual injury than those that are job satisfied, but they're also more likely to fabricate injury and malinger injury than those that are job satisfied. Okay? So over 2/3 of all examinees that you'll see have job dissatisfaction as the recurring theme through their injury. It says, according to several studies, increasing employee job satisfaction is as important as eliminating physical hazards in the workplace. They consistently found that job satisfaction was more predictive of lower accident rates than such factors as demographic factors, such as health factors, such as psychological factors, and such as stress factors. It's more productive of lower accident rates than all these other things. Job dissatisfaction. So you can safely say that the majority of the examinees that you're going to see are going to be in some way, shape, or form in a job dissatisfaction rut. Okay? So what are the things that contribute to job satisfaction? When we say examinees are dissatisfied with their job, what are some things in the workplace that contribute to job satisfaction, and what are some things that contribute to job dissatisfaction? Well, of course, one of the things that contributes to job satisfaction is the rate of pay, the compensation or the pay. Job security is associated with job satisfaction. The opportunity to use your abilities and skills to progress and to advance within the organization contributes to job satisfaction. Fringe benefits such as Social Security, Medicare, paid leave, insurance plans, etc., retirement plans, savings plans, these all contribute to an employee's sense of well-being and satisfaction about their job. It gives them a good feeling about their job to be able to receive these benefits. Now, higher employee age contributes to job satisfaction. Higher employee years of service within the organization contributes to job satisfaction. Now, 3 more things contribute to job satisfaction, and I'm going to say these together because they all have in common that they have to do with the relationship with your immediate supervisor. So, for example, low job stress. Low job stress, meaning that you have support from the supervisor, you have some control over your job, and there's plenty of information sharing going on within your particular group. All of those contribute to job satisfaction. Low stress, supervisor support, job control, information sharing. So the opposite of those, no support from the supervisor, no control over the job function, and no sharing of information within your group, and particularly with you, those would contribute to feelings of high job stress and towards feelings for job dissatisfaction. So how many of our employees nowadays have problems with the supervisor, have no control over their job duties? There's no information sharing going with their department. They're under what they perceive to be high stress, and this creates job dissatisfaction. They have negative relations with immediate supervisor. They have no participatory role in organizational change. And both of the examples that I want to share with you today involve just that. No participation in organizational change. Both of today's case examples involve organizational change. So we'll talk about those. So, positive relationships with immediate supervisors. How many of the examinees that you've seen, when they share their history with you, contains overtones of their relationship with the immediate supervisor? If it's not the immediate supervisor, it could be the boss above that or the owner of the company. But the disgruntlement and the beef, you'll find, weaves its way through the history and through the conversation. So, for example, I want to share with you 2 case histories of actual examinees in the workers' compensation system. The first one was a 45-year-old male electrician working for a temporary employment agency. The temporary employment agency had a contract with a local contractor for specialists, and this guy was an electrician. So they could provide an electrician to the contractor company, and it was the temporary employment agency that paid all the taxes, paid the workers' compensation, and all of that stuff. Okay? So this guy, 45-year-old male electrician, gets dispatched to a job site for a contracting job. And things are going well for a while. He's doing his electrical contracting work. And at some point, very shortly into his employment, he gets into a conversation with his immediate supervisor. And both of these guys, the electrician and the supervisor, are from the same country, not United States. Okay? So the immediate supervisor asked the electrician, what religion are you? Because the country that they come from is a very religious company. In fact, they might be religious immigrants here to the United States due to religious persecution or something like that. I don't know, I'm speculating. But anyway, so the electrician responded that he was a such and such religion, and it contrasted and conflicted with the religion of the immediate supervisor. Well, from that point on, the immediate supervisor, this is according to the electrician, to the examinee, the immediate supervisor began to discriminate against the electrician based on his religious preference. He gave him all the worst jobs. He changed his job duty around to involve much more heavy lifting, much more awkward work, much more physically taxing and demanding work. And on top of that, imposed various seemingly nonsensical restrictions and preclusions and brackets and parameters about how the electrician could even go about doing his work. One example the electrician told me was that he was not allowed to carry his tool belt around his waist with all of his tools, but rather had to set a larger toolbox at a central area and then come and go to the toolbox as needed, rather than have his tools all with him around his waist. There's one example. And so the electrician described all of these abuses of heavy and difficult labor, and then he decided to report an industrial injury. And he reported an industrial injury on a Monday, claiming a date of injury more than 7 to 10 days prior, with an unwitnessed incident, with no specific incident of injury, just that he was increasingly feeling bad, having a harder and harder time getting over back pain on a day-by-day basis, and returning to work the next day in even greater pain. And it was a denied claim. It was a denied claim because there was no witnessed incident of injury, and there was a delay in reporting, and it was found out that there was job dissatisfaction, that the employee was dissatisfied with his immediate supervisor. And don't you know, later on, he started to manifest even more of the red flags. So after a period of total temporary disability, he was released to work. Okay, this is fascinating. The primary treating physician released him back to work after approximately 30 days of disability. So the examinee went back to work after 30 days, only to find out that the contractor had since recontracted for a new electrician from the temporary employment agency who provided an electrician, so there was no need for an electrician at the contracting job. So this electrician had no work to go back to. He had no work to go back to. So guess what he did? He claimed an aggravation. I don't know how it happened. Happened in between medical visits that showed he was improving, but he claimed an exacerbation of his condition and reinitiated his total temporary disability payments. He stayed out of work longer than the doctor prescribed. He protested excessively about a modified position or returning to work by claiming an exacerbation of his condition, which then restarted the TTD benefits again newly. Okay? So he was dissatisfied with his job. He was dissatisfied with his job to the extent that he could not be in the same premise as immediate supervisor. I mean, they wanted to go at each other like cats and dogs. It was bad. And so this person, the electrician, had to get away in any way possible, had to get away from the immediate supervisor. It was a matter of, I believe for him, it was a matter of spiritual survival, because it was conflict between the two of them. So he had to get away from his immediate supervisor. And so job dissatisfaction was a major theme involved with every aspect of that case. Second case I want to share with you involves a 25-year-old female. She's a room cleaner, meaning she's in housekeeping at the local Hyatt Hotel or Sheraton Hotel or Best Western Hotel or something like that. Now, she claims injury to her neck, her upper back, and her right shoulder, scapular, rib, cervicothoracic kind of upper quadrant kind of pain injury. Well, on interview, it turns out that she allegedly suffered injury while cleaning a bed alone in her room. Now, she cleans beds every day, all day, but she said this particular day she was working faster than usual because she had been given new work orders. And she'd been given new work orders by new management that had just taken over the management of the hotel. So according to the examinee, the new management gave her new instructions to clean about 1/3 to 40% more rooms on a daily basis than prior management required that they do as housekeepers. Well, she did not like this. She particularly did not like this because she was elevated. In other words, her job task was elevated to the level of every other housekeeper in the hotel. Prior to new management coming on and prior to new demands being imposed upon her, this examinee had a lower daily requirement for room production than every other housekeeper for a reason. The reason was, according to the examinee, the reason was that when she was hired as a disabled person because she had a prior workers' compensation claim with a prior employer that involved both of her knees. Both of her knees had several surgeries, I think 3 on one side, 2 on the other, something like that. And this was her new job after rehabilitation from injuries sustained on the first job. So she was hired, according to her, by the hotel as a disabled person because of her knees. Because of her knees, the supervisor at the time gave her a lower daily room requirement than her cohorts and colleagues. Let's call it 12 rooms a day, and with new management they increased her production requirement to 16 rooms per day, something like that, for the same pay. For the same pay. Now, there's nothing in writing in any of the medical records on this file that corroborate the examinee's story of being hired disabled. That's simply a subjective testimony. It's simply her subjective testimony. And she says that not only was she discriminated against because she was disabled, she was required to increase her production by 33% for the same pay. So this was a double blow to the gut for this particular examinee, and she decided same day as the new increased demands, to file a claim for workers' compensation injury. For, remember, what was an unwitnessed incident, which she did not report until the following day, by the way. I think I left those details out at the beginning. This was an unwitnessed incident. She said she hurt herself while changing beds alone in a room, and she did not report it until the very next day. She did not report it same day. She did not require medical treatment same day. And very next day, the medical record contains some statements from supervisors and co-supervisors disputing this claim for injury and some of the precedents to the claim for industrial injury. Well, just as I was suspecting that there was obvious job dissatisfaction involved with this case, she told me that in addition to the claim for workers' compensation benefits, she also had a claim in for a discrimination lawsuit, a labor lawsuit against her employer for discrimination on the basis of her disabled. So I know she has a beef with the company consistent with what are described as red flags. She's disgruntled. She has a beef. She's involved in a labor dispute. She's protesting excessively about doing this increased demand of room cleanings per day. So it was obvious to me, especially since there was involved in a labor dispute, that this was a disgruntled examinee, and I suspected that the labor dispute may be driving the claim, driving the perception of industrial injury, or driving the whole claim for industrial injury. And so this claim was one that could easily be denied on the basis of lack of sufficient proof that there was an industrial injury. Remember, in these cases, when you identify job dissatisfaction as a recurring theme and you suspect red flag for industrial injury, and the examinee may have several of these red flags going on, remember, what's the recurring theme? And that is, how do we handle these types of cases? In handling these types of cases, remember that it's up to the examinee to prove their claim by a preponderance of the evidence of the industrial injury. It's not your job. If you're not sufficiently convinced, if you find gaps in the story, if you find inconsistencies, if you find that claims are not supported by documents of days, dates, and events, if you don't find support, it's not your job to fabricate support or fashion support or unearth support. So that's not your job as a qualified medical evaluator. That's the job of the examinee. And if the examinee is represented, that's the job of the examinee's attorney. That's what their job is, to advocate for the examinee, not yours. So when you find these red flags cases, especially job dissatisfaction, don't feel like you have to authenticate the claim. You don't have to opine AOE, COE if you're not sufficiently satisfied that the examinee has proven their claim. Now, most of these claims come to us as denied claims. Why are they denied? Before they even get to us, they're denied because the claims administrator knows that the examinee cannot prove their injury. And the law requires that the injured worker, the examinee, prove it. Not the doctor, the examinee has to prove it. That's why it comes to you denied, because there's no proof. It was an unwitnessed incident with a delay in reporting with an examinee that's also involved in a labor dispute with their employer. How many red flags does it take? Ding, 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 ding. For you to realize that this is a denied claim and that you can feel confident in denying it as well, unless proof is pounded over you and pounded into you that allows you to opine differently. And when you opine differently, AOE, COE, you must support your opinion for industrial injury with how and why reasoning that's factual, it's based on relevant facts, and it better be good. It better be good. Absent such compelling information, these claims can confidently be denied as simply red flag nuisance cases, not representative of true industrial injury, if that is your true finding. The second thing is, in handling these cases, it's important to always ask yourself, what's truly objective here? What's truly objective here? And the examinee will come to you with all kind of subjectivity, all kind of compelling story, and all kind of convincing testimony that pulls at your heartstrings and draws you in to the emotion of their story. Remember, all of that is simply subjective. Okay? Continue to ask yourself what's truly objective here. See, the AMA guides are largely based on objective data. Well, so should your QME interview and evaluation be based on objective data. So continue to ask yourself, what's objective here? In these two case examples that I gave you, what's objective? What's objective is one examinee is involved in a labor dispute with her employer. That's objective. There's facts, papers, documents to back it up. There's no similar facts, documents, data to back up her claim of an unwitnessed incident with a delay in reporting. There's no document. What's objective? What's subjective? All the objective data points to red flag cases representative likely of no industrial injury. With the electrician, what's truly objective here? He wants to kill his supervisor, and his supervisor wants to kill him due to religious conflict. That's objective. That's what he said. That's what he feels. What's subjective? His claims of an injury on a Monday morning for no specific incident that occurred at some non-specific time the week before, which is completely subjective. So in these cases, the truly objective information will point you towards the correct opinion, which is usually in the direction of a denial for AOE, COE. So doctors, I hope this helps you. This is one more tool in your toolbox to help you decide on the critical issues in your report. Critical issues being primarily causation, permanent impairment, and apportionment. And really, the bulk of these cases that we're getting, these red flag cases, these difficult cases, involve disputes over compensability. These are the Labor Code 4060 evaluations for compensability, where our opinion on AOE, COE is what the parties are waiting for.